KPTV network. You're watching the Kingdom Promoters Talk Show. I'm your host, Minister Fatike Samora. I want to welcome you to another episode this week. I thank you all for watching our show and sharing it on Facebook and encouraging words, prayers, and your subscription on YouTube is highly appreciated. I want to thank those that have already went ahead and subscribed to our YouTube channel and also liked our Facebook page. Keep spreading the word because we are in this together. You know, we cannot take the media for Christ by ourselves. It's a teamwork. We are going to work together to make sure this happens. And I also want to thank Star TV in Sierra Leone for airing the show on TV to make sure the gospel reached out to those that are unreachable. We appreciate you and we bless God for your life and we thank God for what you're doing. And with that being said, the episode that I have today, it's about mothers. We're going to have a discussion today about motherhood, and it's just perfect for Mother's Day. And we're going to be an encouragement to all the mothers, including myself and my guest here with me today. So stay tuned, and when we come back, we're going to go into discussion. I'll be right back.
This spring, only one hero can save her family and prevent disaster.
Mom, we're gonna be late for school!
I don't think so.
Whoa.
Experience the phenomenon that critics are calling inspiring.
Mom, I can't find number 17!
Come on, Billy! Dig deep!
A lot of fun. And pure genius.
Mom, where's my phone?
Table.
Keys.
Mudroom.
Dragon Man?
Under the couch between the monkey and the flip-flop.
How does she do that?
Created by God to demonstrate his love with grace, elegance, and poise. She is Mom.
Hey, honey, have you seen my butane torch?
Welcome back. For those of you who are just tuning in, you're watching the Kingdom Promoters Talk Show on KPTV network. I'm Ms. Fatike Samora. Today I have a woman of God with me in the studio who is going to be a guest on the show to discuss about motherhood and also to just put a light on what our duties and who we are as mothers. So with no further delay, I want to introduce Mrs. Darla Haas. Welcome on the show, Mrs. Haas.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege to have you here today, and I'm very excited to have this episode with you today. And as we all know, the Mother's Day is approaching, and this was just a perfect episode to encourage mothers all over the world. Mm-hmm. But before we go into that, introduce yourself and tell us who you are and where you're from.
My name is Darla Haas, and I live here in Maumelle, Arkansas, where you also reside now. And I was a daughter of a pastor, so I grew up in church and have been involved in ministry of various sorts my entire life. I'm now married to a physician. We have 3 children who are grown, married. We have 5 grandchildren. And I have thoroughly enjoyed every single phase of my children's lives. I can totally say that.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And before we get into the role as a mother, how was it like growing up in church, being a PK, a pastor's kid?
I loved it. I thought it was the grandest life in the world. I really did. We got to travel. I got to meet interesting people, missionaries, pastors, evangelists, singers. I thought it was a wonderful life. And it does come with a bit of criticism. You live in a glass house. And so I think I developed a thick skin early on. And my parents were really wonderful at helping me laugh it off if I was criticized unjustly. Mm-hmm. And that gave me a good taste in my mouth and a good flavor because I didn't take it too seriously. Mm-hmm. And we had a great family life. And I will have to say, my parents did it right because they did not neglect their children. And I find that some ministers hide under the guise of ministry when they really just don't want to accept the responsibility of parenthood.
Oh, wow.
And it's no different than an executive or anyone else who just escapes into work and avoids the responsibility of parenting their children. My parents didn't do that. They made us feel important. My dad took Mondays off and tried very much, unless there was an emergency, to spend the time with us on those days, and was very there for us. And so I grew up with a great love for the church and zero resentment, which is probably unusual.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, because I don't know if it's a generational thing, but now in our generation, you have children who are PK, and most of them, when you talk to them, I'm just going to church because, my father doesn't want me to stay home, my mom doesn't want me to stay home, but that love of God is not there. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
I think sometimes ministers, like I just said, get so immersed in the Lord's work, quote unquote, that they neglect their children, they neglect their families, and I think the child resents that.
Right.
And that's no different than someone who is any other job, you know, and the child feels like they're number 2, 3, 4, somewhere down the list.
Right.
And I think that's one reason. I think sometimes, sadly enough, there's hypocrisy, and the minister portrays one person on stage pulpit, behind the pulpit, and he's another person at home. And I have met ministers' children who resent church because of that. But I would say those are probably the 2 primary reasons.
And it's amazing. I get to find out, one time I was speaking to a pastor when I used to live in Jersey. And he asked me a question. He said, "Woman of God, what is your number one calling in life?" And, I went ahead and, my number one calling is to be a minister, to sing and preach the gospel and do what God has called me to do. I went on and on and on. And he said, "No, your number one calling in life is for you to be a mother. Not only a mother, but a good mother and a good wife. So if you're a family person, you're a husband and wife, you're working in the vineyard of God, your number one calling is a family." And I think that is one thing that, just like you said, a lot of ministers, a lot of men and women of God are missing. And practice what you preach, basically. So
I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people who said to my dad, "I believe what you say from the pulpit because I've watched your family." And it was our family unit and the way we interacted with each other and loved one another that basically won them to the Lord, and basically was a form of gospel to them.
Right.
And I think every Christian family has the potential to be a form of gospel to the world.
Lifestyle evangelism. It makes a lot of difference. So how, growing up in that environment with such love and nurturing in the Word of God, and also have that, it's not only always been on the road, going on mission trips or meeting, pastors, meeting amazing people, but you have, when you come home, it's mommy and daddy, not evangelists, not apostles, not, but how did that really prepare you for motherhood, or for you to be a good wife?
Well, first of all, I thought I would marry a pastor or an evangelist or a missionary. And so every time a good-looking evangelist came by the house, I would say, "God, if this is the one, all you have to do is just tap me on the shoulder and let me know." Well, he never tapped on my shoulder, so it didn't happen. And I was totally prepared because I felt like I had been groomed for that life. And, God is a God of surprises, and I love that about him. And his ways are greater than our ways. And I had no idea that I would end up marrying a doctor. And the good thing is, because I shared my dad with the rest of the community and with our church, it's been easy for me to share my husband with his patients and people who need him. Maybe they call in the middle of the night, maybe they need him on a weekend, and there are some medical wives that resent that, that time taken away. I've never resented it because I see his work as ministry. It's a ministry to people who are in need, just as my dad ministered to people in need. And so I never have resented it. So I think that my upbringing helped me in my understanding of the role of a wife, being supportive in her husband's work. And as far as a mom, I just feel like I had such a great, solid, secure upbringing that was my training for motherhood, and it was just easy to emulate what I had been shown.
Right. And you mentioned you have three boys, kids,
two sons
children.
and a daughter.
Right.
Three
And
children.
explain to me how that whole season or that period where you were raising them, and you were a housewife, stay-at-home mom, right? And I think one time we went on lunch, you were explaining an incident that happened when your husband's friends and their wives, they came over for dinner, and everybody kept talking about their qualifications and their degrees, what they do in life, and then they ask you, what do you do?
Well, it was very important for me to finish college and to have a degree. I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was a little girl. And so my parents made sacrifices. They didn't make a lot of money. And so my dad, who was a pastor, actually took a job driving a school bus because my sister and I were in college at the same time. So he had two trying to attend college, yes. And so I knew my parents had sacrificed to make that possible. And I truly wanted to finish for them as well as myself. So I got my degree and started on my master's degree. And I married my husband when he was still in med school and taught and supported us. And at one point, Fati, people who know me now, because I'm such a proponent of motherhood, such a huge proponent and encourager of mothers, they cannot believe it. One point in my life, I seriously considered never having children because we had such a great life. And I thought, well, my husband's going to have his medical career and I have a career in education and I may want to get another degree and be a principal someday. But, I like our life and we had a lot of friends. We were involved in our church. And my thinking was we have all of these school bills to pay off for him for medical school, which will take a long time. And I would love to travel. I would love to see the world. And if I have children, I may not be able to do that. And so I seriously thought, you know what? We just may be one of those couples that maybe doesn't need to have children. And I thought, well, before I make that decision, I really should talk to the Lord about it. So I was in prayer by myself at home one day. And as clearly as I have ever heard the voice of God, he spoke to me and he said, if every believer who knew me and loved me and served me felt the same way you did, what will the next generation look like? If only the atheists and the agnostics are reproducing and those who are devoted to me are not, then who is going to tell the next generation about me? Yeah. And it became a divine calling. Wow. Literally a divine calling upon my life.
It is possible that motherhood, it is a calling.
It is. It is a divine calling. And I think it's a highly sacred one and a very important one. And I quit teaching when I had my first child. I clipped coupons. I used cloth diapers. I sold Avon. I did everything I could to help supplement because my husband was still in residency and we didn't have much money. But it was so important to me to raise my own child. This was the righteous seed, the seed of the righteous that God had given to us. And I took so seriously that role and that responsibility and that honor and that job. And that became my occupation, was bearing and raising godly seed to implant into the next generation for the Lord. And what you referred to was we had for 3 years lived in Anchorage, Alaska. And education is very highly prized in Anchorage.
In Alaska?
Yes.
Wow.
And we were at a dinner party one night, and every medical wife there was talking about what she did. One was an attorney, one was a pilot, one was a world-class bodybuilding champion. Another one was a doctor as well. And so someone turned to me and said, Darla, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a mom and I'm raising 3 children. And it was a man, and he said, okay. And he turned his head the other way, and it was like, okay, our conversation's done.
Yeah.
And
what you do is not important.
I know. And so I felt very insulted, but also a little discouraged by that they didn't even think I had anything to offer, at the conversation. So I started to ask the Lord, should I be doing something else? And I seriously considered law school. My husband says I would have been, and I actually filled them out. And once again, I thought before I do anything rash, I should talk to the Lord. And so I had my paperwork all filled out and ready to go to law school. And I thought, I would be great at this. This is what I can do. I can defend anybody. I can win any argument. Just put me in the court now before the judge. And so I was praying, and the Lord gave me a dream. And in the dream, a former pastor who was a father figure to me came to me in the dream, and he simply smiled at me and he said, Darla, you're doing a good job.
Oh, wow.
And I knew what it meant. I knew it meant stay at your post, stay faithful, stay true to what God has called you to, and don't worry about the opinion of man and what everyone else is thinking or doing.
Wow.
And that was my decision, and I've never regretted it. I have never once regretted putting a career on the back burner or my own personal goals or my own ego for the sake of raising my children. I have never once regretted it.
Oh, wow. That's a powerful point that you made right there when you said when the man in the room turned around and was like, okay, next, let me hear something more professional, something more that is worthwhile. But people don't realize that raising children on its own, it's a full-time job. And I can totally relate to that, because there came a point in my life whereby I'm that kind of person, I'm very much addicted to school.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was in college, if I miss a day from school, I feel like the whole world is coming down on me. That's how I feel so guilty, because I just love being in the classroom. I love learning. I love being in school. And when I met my husband, we have our firstborn. I was pregnant. I was still going to school. I pushed through and made sure I got my degree. And then my daughter, I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was still going to school. I still kept pushing. And there are people, we're saying, please, if I were you, I would give up. What possibly are you going to learn? You're pregnant. You have a toddler, and you're pregnant with a second child, and you're still going to school. What are you trying to prove?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it is very, very much important what society does to us, and that pressure and that instinct to make you feel like being a mother, it's not important, and it's not a career.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are more other things that you can do that is more worthwhile than being a mother. And I totally think that is wrong. And I feel like that is what is affecting our generation today.
Mm-hmm.
You have mothers who are first class, workers. They go to work. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the ability to do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're trying to say here is make sure you put the children first. And don't allow other people to intimidate you,
Right.
or influence you, make you feel like, your family or raising children, it's not your priority. That should be like your number one priority.
Absolutely. As a mom, you have the ability and the honor and the privilege of forming this human being, which is an eternal soul. It's not just for this life, it's for eternity. And I always thought of it as clay. It's almost like they're clay in our hands, and we have the ability to make an impression on them, their spirit, their mind, their body, their emotions, all areas of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's forever. And
It is.
I don't know how in the world there could be anything more important than that, Fati. I really don't. Even ministry, and I grew up in ministry, and I respect highly all forms of ministry, but how could there be anything more important than fashioning a soul for eternity?
But do you think also the reason why some women are not living up to their responsibility, do you think that the church also plays a role in that, teaching women how to take care of their family and take care of because obviously the Bible talks highly about motherhood. Like in the book of Isaiah I was reading, the Lord said, as a mother will comfort their child, so I will comfort you. I will never leave you. So it's just that, like, it's very powerful for God to compare himself and his love towards us as the love of a mother to a child. So that really shows us how powerful we are and how important we are in the eyes of God, and when it comes to the family aspect of it. So what would you say to a college student who got pregnant along the way and struggling to raise this child? Maybe a single mother who think, this is just the wrong decision, or it's a mistake, or the worst thing that have ever happened in their life. What would you say to them?
I was just thinking, this morning I was getting ready and I had music on. I was listening to Israel Houghton, who was the product of a single mom, and she was encouraged to abort, and she did not. And he is a wonderful praise and worship leader.
Yeah.
He leads at Joel Osteen's church in Houston, has recordings, has written beautiful songs, and is such a blessing to so many. And I know several people who were raised by single moms who had the opportunity to be done with it and make life simple. And I think about the contributions they've made to the world and what the world would have missed without them. And every child is a sacred blessing and is from the hand of God. And I would encourage every mother, and if you are in a position where you feel that you don't have the resources or the emotional stamina to raise your child, I would encourage you to have that child anyway, because there are so many couples who would love to adopt and raise a baby, Christian couples that I know who would love to raise a baby for the Lord. So life is precious, and don't waste it.
It is. It's amazing. Yesterday my husband came and we were talking about his place of work, and his boss and him were talking, and he said there were so many children in Arkansas, over 600 children that needs a home. And they were doing a research. They find out there are more than 600 churches in Arkansas. And he said if only one church can take a child and find a family in that church to adopt that child, there shouldn't be any child in Arkansas that will be looking for home.
That's the call. The ministry that adopts those children is called The Call, and they're trying to connect church members with children who need families. And I think Arkansas is really starting to step up to the plate in that area and meet that need largely through the churches. And I'm very appreciative of that ministry called
And I must say, one thing that we really appreciate about Arkansas, apart from people saying Arkansas is a state of, filled with grass and goats and cows, but one thing we came to realize is how family oriented it is. When we go to church, you see husband, wife, and children. Husband, wife, and children from ages maybe 19 to. That's the reason why, when Pastor Rick, they will say Arkansas, the Arkansas God sees, because God values family.
Yes, he does.
He values family, and in Arkansas they put family, God first, family second, and that's where everything else falls in place. I'm gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna discuss more about Darla and what she does, and be an encouragement to you. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Kingdom Promoters Talk Show on Kingdom Promoters TV Network. If you're just tuning in, we were talking about motherhood and how important it is as mothers to know our position in our roles in the lives of our children. And with me, I have Miss Darla that is in the studio with me today discussing this topic. So we stopped off where we were talking about um, the importance of how to balance, especially for young single mothers, how to balance work and family. And you have probably done the better job than I can imagine.
Well,
You
I
know.
don't know. They say the proof is in the pudding, and you've met
I've met your
some
son.
of one of my 3 children, and I will have to say I have 3
Yes.
great kids,
He's a gentleman.
and he's a jewel. So, that makes me feel like my efforts have been rewarded when I see the fruits in their lives. And I will have to say, my daughter is not a mother yet, but both of my sons have children, and they're wonderful husbands and they're wonderful dads. And when I see them interacting in those roles, I think, surely I must have done something right.
Right.
So that's very gratifying, very rewarding. And that's my paycheck. And you and I were talking earlier about how I think a lot of moms in today's society bring in a paycheck, not a monetary value.
Physical
Yes.
paycheck.
There's no monetary value attached to it. And for that reason, I think a lot of the segment of society doesn't value the work that's done in motherhood. But in my opinion, as I told you earlier, I think the work done in motherhood is probably more important than most jobs that have a monetary paycheck attached.
Absolutely.
So I'm a huge proponent of mothers and motherhood, and I helped start a group for single moms at our church several years ago, which is still going. And I mean, I raised 3 children with a partner, and it's a lot of work.
Exactly.
Yes, imagine doing that all by yourself. And I know we had one mom who had 4 boys, and there was not a dad in the picture. And I can't imagine how difficult that must have been raising 4 sons alone, but it's possible. I don't know if you know T.D. Jakes.
Yeah.
The minister in Dallas. He was raised by a single mom. And there are some wonderful, wonderful men who have been raised by single mothers. So I strongly encourage you mothers who are trying to do the job alone and doing the job alone to lean on the Lord to be your husband and to be your support. But it is possible to raise a wonderful, godly man, even by yourself.
Yes, it is. And, I was raised by a single mother. And the 3 of us, my 2 brothers and I, were raised by her. And at one point in our life, our father was not home. It's in Africa, it's different. In America, they'll say, the father have to give child support. But unfortunately, we don't have that in Africa. When the father leaves home, it's solely the mother's responsibility to make sure those kids are raised right. And I can just imagine, like, for me, I have my 3 kids here in America. And, people refer to America, the land of milk and honey, where you have all this necessity. You have all this luxury, if I may say. You have everything that you need to raise a child, even if you're not the richest of all the richest, but there are resources out there that can help you to raise your kids. But think about mothers in Africa who, single mothers especially, who doesn't have that support financially. It can be very, very bad, because growing up in a home with mother and father together, and all of a sudden one partner is missing, and we're stuck with our mother raising us on a teacher salary. In Africa, it's not like they pay teachers there every 2 weeks or every month. Over there, they pay the teachers like whenever they feel like paying them, which is very sad. Like today I was talking to my mom this morning. Tomorrow is her birthday, and I called her and she's telling me, they haven't paid us yet, but I'm just trying to make the best out of my birthday. Because you can tell she was really looking forward to that salary to, have the best day of her life. But that's just how life is in Africa, especially for single mother. I remember there were days when we would wake up in the morning, there's no food. We will go the whole day without food, But my mother always made sure we never went to bed starving. Even if she has to sell her clothes, She would sell her clothes, sell all her materials to make sure there was food and to make sure we are in school. I cannot remember, I can't count how many times we were kicked out of school because of no school fees. And mind you, my mother was a teacher. And we are students, and they were kicking us out of school because of no school fees. So it's very, very, very challenging. I applaud my mother. I really, really salute her. I applaud her for what she did, raising us up. And you know, it's not easy. It really is not easy. So I don't know. I don't understand why people would think motherhood is just nothing. It's just, or whatever, you know. But I feel like that's something that we are the people that, you know, the world should celebrate and really encourage and support. And the church also should really play a big role in the lives of women and mothers.
It's an admirable and valiant position.
It is.
And like I told you before, I think it's a calling. It was on my life. It was a calling.
It is.
And I applaud any mother who's in the throes of raising children right now, single or married. It's challenging for sure.
It is.
And for single moms, I think it's important to try to create a community around your child to help. Maybe a father figure, maybe family members if you have any in town. If not, maybe neighbors. But to create the church, yes, to create a support system to help you in those really challenging years of child rearing.
Right.
I think that's important.
Because it's really now you cannot do it. I remember, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago when Pastor Rick was preaching about his children, and people come up to him and ask him, Rick, you've done such a good job with your kids. How did you do it? And he said, I didn't do it. The church helped me do it. Because I remember when they started off from kid life, or you know, throughout all the steps to where they are now, if it hadn't been the support that they got from the ministry and family members, it wouldn't have been easy. You know, so you also are not just a mother. You go all around preaching, or maybe speaking to women. And
I only preach to my husband.
Yeah, they I think they need preaching more than, you know, speaking. So tell me about this traveling, like this missions that you go on.
I've done a lot of work with women ever since I've been a married woman, really. I've been involved in teaching Bible studies, speak at women's conferences, banquets, mother-daughter banquets, that kind of thing. I have led women's ministries in multiple churches that we've been a part of. And it's just always been a passion in my heart. I love encouraging women, inspiring them, supporting them in their role, and uplifting them. I feel like sometimes the church has been guilty of not placing as much value upon women as men. And so I really passionately love encouraging women and lifting them up to be everything God intended for them to be. I mentor young women and young mothers, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes in group classes. I just love it all. And it's a passion of mine. It truly is a passion of mine.
Maybe I should enroll in one.
I think you're doing just fine.
God knows I need that.
I think you're
you
doing
know,
fine.
my son, my oldest is 9, and my daughter is 7. So I was telling my husband, I said, "Oh my God, it gets really hard when every stage they grow through, and you start seeing the attitude, you know." So sometimes it takes the grace of God to really help you through that.
Yeah, I would hate to raise children without His wisdom. His wisdom is invaluable in child rearing. And I really looked to the Lord a lot, and I journaled all through my children's growing up years. And sometimes I go back and read those prayers that I wrote and see how God answered them and, you know, helped them through that stage and helped me through that stage. And I'm so grateful that I had the Lord with me as my partner, besides my husband, to raise those children. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
And like I can absolutely see the result of that. Your son, he's very, very instrumental in the ministry in your life. very much involved. I admire him so much when we go to the meetings, just seeing him go through the notes that the pastor preached and try to use those notes and encourage us in the group and just speak to us, ask questions, how everyone relates to it. I think that's very, very amazing.
I say about him, he's someone I would want to know even if he were not my son. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to say about your own child. That's someone I would want to know, even if I were not related to them.
He's very amazing.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. And his wife too, Lisa.
Yes.
They're very,
all three of my kids are, they're good people and love the Lord. So I'm very blessed. I feel like I'm reaping the harvest of all those years that I labored in the harvest now. So I love it.
And speaking of writing, you're a good writer.
Thank you.
Because I've read a couple of your blogs, and the one that really touched my heart was the one with your aunt that didn't have no kid or no children. When you had your first child, you used to visit back and forth, and how much you were so much into the child, and how you really loved to just see her interact with the baby and the love for that child. So tell me about your blogs that you do and your writings.
My blog is called thirdseasonblog.com. You could just Google it, thirdseasonblog.com, and find it there. And the reason I named it that is I'm in the third season of my life.
Right.
And I feel at this age and stage, hopefully I have some wisdom to share.
Right.
I certainly have 6 decades of life experience to share. And I've journeyed with the Lord since I was 5 years old. So I have a history, a spiritual history that I can share. And I started the blog as a means of encouraging, inspiring, and supporting people in their faith, in their walk in life. Not just women, not just moms, although
everyone.
Although many of the articles are geared toward motherhood and women, because I'm so passionate about it. But I've had a good response, and people from all over are reading it. And I pray over every blog post that I publish that it will be a blessing, and that God will take those words and use them to bless and encourage someone.
It really is a blessing, and the way how you write is very, very well constructed, and the English is very proper. So I wish I could write English like that, But it's really good, and I thank God for what God is using you to do in this season.
Thank you.
And right now, you've done your own part as a mother, and you transition into grandmother, and your job is still continuing, because I see how you interact with your grandkids. You're very proud of them, very involved. And what would you have to say to, now we are approaching Mother's Day, what would you say to the single mother who feel like it's too much for her to handle, and even couples that are married and a mother feel like the house chores, everything in the house is just me. Sometimes we will get to that point where you feel like, I'm not getting enough help, even though your spouse or your partner is right there. So what would you say to all the mothers as we're approaching Mother's Day, as an encouragement to women in America, in Africa, everywhere in the world?
Well, first of all, there's a scripture that comes to my mind. I would have died if the Lord had not been on my side. And I think we have all felt that way at some point or another. And I am so grateful that I have had the Lord on my side. And I encourage you, if you don't know Him, and if you don't have Him as your partner in life, to ask the Lord to join hands with you, to be your partner in everything you do. And secondly, I would say to the moms, be kind to yourself. Seriously, I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves.
Too hard on ourselves.
We are very hard on ourselves. We're a very competitive society.
Yes.
And we're always trying to up-notch all the competition out there.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we need to give ourselves permission just to be kind to ourselves. And I know sometimes I'm a type A, I'm a firstborn. I had to make straight A's in school, so I'm preaching to myself here. But sometimes as a mom, I would have to say to myself, okay, what would you say to another mom that you were talking to?
Right.
How would you encourage her? Would you be this hard on her? No. you would show her more grace than you're showing yourself. So sometimes I think you just need to show yourself a little grace.
Yeah.
And be kind to yourself. And the other thing is, I think we can do it all, but I don't think we can do it all at the same time.
True.
We can have a great career. We can raise great kids. We can have a great marriage. We can do work in the church. We can do ministry. We can do work in the community. But I am not sure we can do all of that at the same time and do it well.
No.
So I just think it's important to pick and choose your priorities and what season you're in. When I had small children at home, I didn't do as much in the community. When my children were in school, later on, I volunteered, as I told you about, the shelter for battered and abused women and children here. I worked at the shelter there for a number of years and was on the board for 3 years and did fundraisers for them and did direct work every week and loved it. But I couldn't have done that when I had small children at home.
Sure.
So there's a season, and now I'm in a season of freedom. My children are raised, my family is raised, and I do care for my grandchildren on a regular basis, but I have much more freedom now. So I think, considering the season you're in, be kind to yourself, show yourself grace, and be sure the Lord is your partner.
Amen. You know, that takes me back to the meeting we went to on Sunday. I remember Matt, your son, was asking, is there anyone here that feel like they don't know their purpose in life, or you know your purpose, but you don't even know, what it is or how to go about it? And I clearly remember Lisa, your daughter-in-law, she said, well, I know my purpose. My purpose is to be a mother and a wife to my husband. I found that very amazing.
Yes.
Well, everybody was just worried about how to save the world. Be Superman and Superwoman. And she made me look like, okay.
And I especially appreciate her priorities because she's a pharmacist.
She is.
She's a doctor of pharmacy.
Yeah.
And I told her God knew not to make me smart enough to do that, because if I had a doctor in front of my name, everybody would know about it. And she's so humble. She never mentions it. She never brings it up. And she truly does have her priorities aligned.
Yeah.
And one other thing, Fati, that I would like to say to all of us moms is, sometimes, this is a little saying I have, the most spiritual thing you can do is take a nap. And I'm totally serious with that. I sometimes feel like we get so ragged and so worn out and so exhausted that we get cranky.
Yeah.
And we're not nice to be around, and we don't act the way we should. And so sometimes I remember saying to my children when they were small and I was fried, you know what? I'm going to go take a nap. The most spiritual thing I can do right now is go take a nap.
So
and even if it's 15 minutes, yes.
You just walk away.
Yes, just drop everything, take a 15-minute nap. But seriously, when we are absolutely spent and exhausted, we are not good to anyone. We're not good to anyone.
It's like trying to run a car on an empty tank. When the gas is out, is out. But it's been a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you so much.
I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate you being here and sharing your, word of wisdom. And I know it is an encouragement to me. And eventually, I'm probably going to enroll in that session for myself. But thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you for having me today. I've enjoyed being here.
No problem. I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch the show today. And I know that this episode has been a blessing to you, and to you as a mother, a single mother who is thinking about giving up or just walking away from that present situation. I encourage you, don't give up. Just look up to God and have Him be your help. Because the Bible said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Amen.
And remember that womanhood, motherhood, it's a blessing. It's a privilege. The Bible said children are blessings from God. So when God rewarded you with a child, it is your responsibility. Look at it as a job and a calling and a privilege to be a mother and to have that wonderful child in your life. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit there and say it's easy. It's not easy. So that's why you need to surround yourself with godly people. Have a little community around yourself, your church, family members. For those of you who don't have family, have good friends. There are some people out there who are willing to help. And don't be ashamed to ask for help when you need one. And I just want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially my mother. I want to thank you for what you did to me and my brothers raising us and just being a woman of virtue, and went through all that you went through to make sure that we were okay. And happy Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Mama Dora. God bless you, and God bless, your labor, and I know that you enjoy the fruits of the womb. I thank you all for watching. Thank you, Star TV. Thank you, all my viewers, and I encourage you to visit our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also like our page on Facebook. That's it for today. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Today is Mother's Day.
Today
is Mother's Day.
It's a day to honor
the most important women in our lives.
To thank them for all their support, all their love.
Driving me to all my sports and paying for all of them.
My mom does my laundry, which is helpful because I don't even know how to do it.
Taking me to find my prom dress, which took a long time because I'm very picky.
My mom feeds me. That's key.
We all want to find a great gift and find
The perfect card for Mom. Has curvy handwriting.
But how do you give a gift that expresses everything that a mother really means to you?
It's hard to find a card that says everything that you want to say. I mean, you'll pick one up and it'll say good things at first, but then you'll be like, oh, that line doesn't even apply to our relationship.
This year, maybe we should try something different.
What if we gave Mother's Day as a gift for the next 365 days?
Not just one day, but every day this year.
Showing the love and support that our mothers deserve.
We could say thank you more often. Let her relax when she needs to.
Making one of those little books like you did in elementary school with all of this coupon is good for one free back rub.
Noticing things that need to be done without her telling me to do them.
Surprising her with gifts and flowers just at random times.
Keeping the bathroom clean.
Giving her shoulder rubs and maybe buying her some new t-shirts.
Mother's Day, 365 days.
365 days.
I think she's earned it.
And also today, a massage or something shiny that wouldn't hurt either.
I love you, Mom.
I love you, Mom.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
KPTV.